Reece James, player of the match today. How pleased can Chelsea be with that performance, and how pleased can Reece James be with his own performance today?
I think firstly for Chelsea, they'll be very pleased. I think the manager will be in that dressing room congratulating the players for sticking to the task and understanding it was a naive tackle by Caicedo, but how focused they were to ensure that Arsenal weren't going to get clear chances. They worked tirelessly as a team. Everybody, every last one of them gave absolutely everything, and that's what it's all about. In order to be successful, you've got to sacrifice yourself as an attacker, for sure. When you've got 10 men, it's important for you as one of the attackers to not necessarily think about scoring goals, and usually you'd reserve your energy to score goals, whereas in this case you reserve your energy to defend and ensure that you're making it difficult for the opposition. As for Reece James, I mean, we're talking about a player who's been in the first-team environment now for many years and has become a senior player for this group. He's been at the club nearly 20 years and struggled with injuries throughout his career, specifically over the last couple of years. But there's no doubt he's an absolutely unbelievable football player. The versatility he brings to this team, the set pieces that he can bring, he's got all the tools to be able to play in midfield and to play right back. He was an absolute beast today. Gave him so much running power in midfield. It was a very, very experienced and professional performance from him, and he played very, very well.
We were saying, Theo, there aren't many players with England who play in one position for their club and another for their country.
Yes, it's brilliant.
Unique right now.
It's very unique, and as well, it's a great, not problem, but it's another option that obviously Thomas Tuchel can have in certain games, because his delivery itself, set pieces, which are so important for a lot of clubs and a lot of national teams these days. But what I'm really pleased to see in his development is his growth and his leadership skills, because he's obviously been questioned in the past about is he a leader, is he a captain? He clearly is on today's performance. You're playing against Declan Rice and the other Caicedo next to him, and he's player of the match. For me, looking at the Arsenal sense, they'd be disappointed and they didn't test him enough. But look, he was absolutely outstanding today. He really was, from start to finish.
The game was really in the balance, wasn't it? I suppose the sense was that Arsenal were going to push for a winning goal, having equalised with half an hour to go. We had to wait, really, Theo, until the last seconds of the game for this moment. What has happened here is Gyökeres surely has got to be screaming at Timber to get out of the way of that.
This is when you get desperate towards the end of games and you want to obviously commit loads of bodies forward. You always feel, though, if a right-back's in this position, I would be asking question Gyökeres now. I'll be pulling him and just saying, look, this is my space. This is why I'm on the pitch. But look, he's been doing it all season, but just, yeah, he'd be disappointed with that. Gyökeres, yes, I think he would have been calling it. There's no doubt of that. I think we wouldn't see that. But it just annoys me when players are just out of position. But like, I understand why Arsenal committed so many bodies, but that's what they faced today, and it was disappointing on their side.
Was that a late let-off for Chelsea?
Very much so. You know, I'm there thinking, Timber! And I'm like, all of a sudden, it's like, you better move. Like, you know, I need to be the guy coming on the pitch and attacking this thing, and you're thinking to yourself, "Bro, just move out the way."
But Gyökeres is sometimes too nice, I think. He'd
have been fuming. He'd have been fuming about that. Of course, you're going home thinking to yourself, I want to say something to him, you know, but you know what? He was in my spot. And at the end of the day, he got the leap, he had the power, the connection was all off.
Would have been some story, wouldn't it, for Gyökeres, back from injury, coming off the bench, and that was just going to be his moment to win the game for Arsenal in these late stages. It didn't happen. And I suppose Arsenal were favourites, really, Theo, after that red card in the first half. To Moises Caicedo. Daniel spoke at half-time about it looking more like a red card once it is slowed down. When you saw it first time, did you think red straight away?
No, not initially, because I felt the referee actually continued to play the game. In that sense, if you think it's a red card, you're quick to react in that position, because considering this is one of the best referees in the Premier League.
He's actually got a really good view of it, probably better than anyone.
And like Daniel was saying at half-time, the delay, where he's obviously got someone in his ear just trying to re-referee, like we were saying, to give him a yellow, just to delay the decision so they could just really monitor it in that sense. I think that's the problem with VAR. I think you need to initially go with your initial decision straight away, and then you can obviously react in that sense. But I just think the fact he's delayed it and allowed the game to continue. Normally red card, you see it straight, red card. So, look, I think the right decision was made.
Because the game actually played on, didn't it, down towards this end in front of us. He might have wanted to see what happened in the rest of that phase of play. And then he pulled out a yellow card almost to mark it, didn't he?
Yeah, no, to mark obviously what he was going to commit to. But look, I just think Caicedo does not need to be doing that in that position anyway. You know, we can speak about VAR and all that side of things. However, I think Caicedo is the one who you kind of felt it was coming from his initial start of the game. I felt that was going that way.
And the question we have to, you know, what the VAR said watching it was the straight leg is key, Daniel. Excessive force as well used in that moment. You agree with that?
Yeah, it is almost like a little jump into it, and that's probably what it is. You can see the force is strong. It almost, if he doesn't pull his leg away, it could have been a lot worse.
And because of those two factors I mentioned, therefore endangering the opponent as well.
Yeah, and it looks like it, to be honest. You know, you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of one of those challenges. Caicedo's a top-class football player, and he'll be absolutely fuming with himself right now, knowing that he's made a big mistake that's going to cost his team in terms of his availability moving forward.
And their fourth red card of the season, twice as many as any other team at this stage, which is not ideal 13 games into a season when you are potentially pushing on for a title. Having said all that, they still managed to find a way to get themselves in front. Did that come as a surprise at the start of the second half?
It did, I think, for everyone in the arena, how loud they screamed. You know, it was a magnificent cross into the box. The connection from Chalobah, who, again, I thought was brilliant today. And adding those goals to a game, you know, in these tight situations, it's two teams who are the leaders in terms of goals from set pieces. We're used to seeing Arsenal doing things like this to the opposition, and today it's Chelsea.
The new set
showing
piece
them,
kings.
yeah, showing them what it's all about. They've got the players in the box that can make those connections, but it's always important when, you know, we talk about how many set piece goals teams score, but I think having players who can deliver crosses like that time and time again, that is also a unique skill set. Not every team has someone who can deliver a ball right to a player and consistently do it. The repetitions that these guys are putting out, the output in terms of, you know, we're going to put it in this zone and it goes into that zone, and it's evolving. And I think specialists, we talk about long throw specialists, you know, Liam Delap's dad was one of them. Now we're seeing set piece specialists, specifically corner guys, and it's like we're seeing a lot more assists, less in open play and more from set pieces now.
But a details team like Arsenal would be devastated to concede in that manner by the same token, wouldn't
It will
they?
just show the fact he wants to leave in Gabriel back as quick as possible, because I felt throughout the whole game, it's probably the most vulnerable Arsenal were. You know, at times Chelsea found it comfortable, you know, when they're attacking them in times, and there was a lot of mistakes from the centre-halves as well at times. No one really showed the leadership skills in that sense to get control of the players and the play, and it didn't look as organised. And I think that would be the worry, looking in an Arsenal sense. But look, it's a point which, yes, you look back at it now, you would have taken it, of course. However, they'd be disappointed they conceded from a set piece, and it's a bit of their own medicine, isn't it?
Very interesting thoughts of Merino, who then equalises for Arsenal on the hour mark. But there's something caught your eye in the build-up to this goal.
Yeah, you know, watching the goal unfold, you're sort of thinking in this area here, OK, try and just keep the ball. And it's almost as if, you know, Liam Delap there tries to kind of initiate a counter-attack that probably wasn't on. So you're thinking to yourself, all right, you know, we'll get back into position here. But it's important to try and keep the ball when you've got 10 men. So you're just inviting pressure onto your defence once again, another wave of an attack. Again, you're in a one-on-one position in a wide area, is a place you don't want to be in, specifically going up against a player like Saka. And he's always going to have the quality in these areas. Merino, his timing of his runs, the positioning he puts himself into the box, specifically in and around the penalty spot, he's magnificent in these areas. You look at the movement here, he's not even marked. Checks his shoulder, and it's a clean header for him. Brilliant cross, brilliant finish.
He talked to you about trying to meet it at its highest point, the ball. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, no, he's just the timing of his, obviously his lift to create goals and his heading ability as well has been, it's been so important for Arsenal. It's been a different option for them to have. I think as well, just having that settling period of Gyökeres, and he's had an injury as well at times, I think it's been really important. You can just see how important his goals are, tally there. But yeah, just to go back on your Liam Delap point there, even at that time when Odegaard come on, that's when you got to put a lot more pressure on himself there, because Odegaard came on, I felt he started to really get control of the game. But yeah, it's a disappointment on that side for Liam Delap. But yeah, Merino has become such a really integral, important player for Arsenal. And I think you can clearly see he's disappointed in the fact that they know they can perform better. However, he's been really reasonable in the way he's analysing that game. I think they kind of expected to get a point going into this. But look, I just think they needed to pick up the intensity if they were ever going to actually create more chances. And I think that was the thing. I didn't think they created as many clear-cut chances as they normally do. So I think it was a really different game for Arsenal tonight.
Have you been surprised by Merino's goal output and sort of how much of an attacking threat he is for Arsenal?
Yeah, it surprised me. It really did, because I don't see him as that player. I really didn't. When he came to the club, I felt he was more of a player that would be controlling in a deeper role. And I think it's like what Mikel's done to Kai Havertz, who we don't see too often, kind of developed into a different player. He's done the same thing here.
Interesting now, Theo, isn't it? Because if Gyökeres is fit, if Havertz is on his way back fit, Gabriel Jesus back on the bench today, where does Merino fit into this team?
I think he's more trusted in the big games. I do. I think he's a player that you know what you're going to get. You know exactly the kind of game you're going to face. And he's got so much more experience in these games. I think Gyökeres will be more an impact player in the big games.
Yeah.
I do. I really do see that now. I just think he trusts him a lot more. And I think Gyökeres will probably do him a lot of good just to visually watch on the outside. Yeah, if he wanted to play, I understand that. However, I think he'll learn a lot from what Marino does and try and change his game a little bit.
So you think he would be starting Marino ahead of Gyökeres?
I can see that happening a lot more often than, yeah.
You agree?
No.
I don't know. I don't, because they've been crying out for a striker.
Yeah.
So, I think Merino brings that stability in there. He brings that extra defensive body, almost like a false nine. But they've been searching for that goal scorer, man. That's why they spent that money. You need to have that brother on the pitch. If he's fit and firing, you got to have him out there, because I do agree with you that Merino gives them a different kind of problem for the opposition. But you need your big hitters out there, man. And Gyökeres was bought to provide goals in big moments. That's what he was there for. That's why I was saying he's fuming with timber.
So what if Havertz is fit then? Who's starting then?
That's Arteta's job, isn't it?
But they're very different, aren't they? They're very different types.
Yeah.
I suppose if you want to put them in a box, Havertz is probably a little bit more.
Well, there you go.
Merino-like.
That for me, that's the beauty of Arsenal's squad. This is the best squad they've had since the Invincibles. For me, when you look at them and you look at the players they've got in each position, they've got high quality players. It's not, okay, I've got a young lad who's coming in and he's this or he's that. These are seasoned professionals at the highest level. We're talking about Merino, who was at the Euros with Spain. Then you've got Havertz, who's won the Champions League at the club, and you've got Gyökeres, who's won the Golden Shoe last year. So these are the guys who are vying for one spot. Then you've got the wingers, the amount of options they've got there. I think all in all, when you analyse Arsenal now, they have acquired themselves an amazing squad that can challenge on all fronts. They are probably, when you analyse other teams, they're looking at Arsenal as the standard now and going, I don't think that's happened in the last maybe 15 or 20 years. Theo, you could correct me if I'm wrong as a former Arsenal player, but to me, when I look at them, I think the expectation is that they are the standard and they're being hunted now. The expectation of them winning the Premier League is probably a collective sort of feeling, which is, again, probably the first time it's really happened, where we're looking at Manchester City, we're looking at Liverpool, we're looking at Chelsea and going, Chelsea are a surprise package this season. The expectation wasn't for them to be challenging. So I think looking at Arsenal, they are in perfect prime position with all of the changes. We talked about Gabriel and Saliba today. The two centre-halves come in, they do well. So there really is no excuses in regards to Arsenal's capabilities this year. Now it's time for them to deliver, but it will be a similar thing now or next year.
Would you swap this squad for anyone else's?
No, I just wouldn't. I think Chelsea, I'm trying to mould like Arsenal a couple of years ago. I feel like they are in that process. I wouldn't change the squad for anyone. I think the options he has, we spoke about on numerous occasions, they're all testing each other, they all challenge each other in a really competitive, strong, positive way. I think there's plenty of positivity coming out of the club constantly, except from Mikel Arteta. He sets the start every day. I just think, for me, Arsenal, they need to be winning games like this, though, when you're going 10 men. We were saying they've got the best squad. Well, go and show me in these games when you're against 10 men to win. But having said that, they've just kept them at bay. So they will be disappointed, I understand that. But we're talking about the best squad right now that are trying to challenge Chelsea with 10 men. Not quite enough today for me. But look, they'll be disappointed in the result. However, they've got a point.
Brentford and Villa in the next 7 days for Arsenal. There is no let-up at this stage of the season, but it's the same for all those sides who are involved in trying to win multiple trophies. Can we given all that, excuse the fact that they couldn't find that extra gear? Yes, they forced a couple of saves from Robert Sanchez, but they didn't manage to find that breakthrough when You were saying yourself at half-time, this was time for Arsenal to go and win here.
Yeah, no, it was, and I think the disappointing part of it would be Martinelli. This was the clearest they probably had in the whole game, and that's obviously right towards the end of the first half, and they weren't as flowing, and they didn't really had the feel of that were going to actually cause them problems at times. And the half chance, this was probably the other one, which was a fantastic save again by Sanchez, but again, we're looking at the 88th minute where Arsenal were at their dangerous. These
in total, Theo, 8 shots in the game for Arsenal. That's the fewest in any game this season.
And those 8 shots, only 2 of them were probably really clear when I look at it as overall at the game. However, I think it would be important now their reaction, how they're going to react from these kind of games, and people expecting Arsenal to maybe go 2 ways here and really start, licking their wounds. They can't do that. And I think we look at these chances of Saka. These aren't clear chances. These aren't the chances we expect of Arsenal.
We're finding the best that Arsenal had.
Yes, I know, and that's the disappointing side of it that Mikel will face. He said we expected to win. We expect to put in a performance, and I felt just the intensity had to be raised, and it wasn't. Clearly, it wasn't. And these are really half chances, and not what we're used to seeing Arsenal do. But however, look, it's a point. I keep on referring to it. It's the process which the Arsenal are developing at this moment in time, and it keeps these teams at bay. But yes, they'd be more disappointed in the fact they didn't actually create too many chances in a clear opportunity against 10 men. But it's one of those, like, how often, Sturridge, would you have trained against 10 men in training? I don't remember training against 10 men in training too often. So it's another factor. We're not used to it.
Is it unfair, Daniel, to say that Arsenal might have gambled a little bit more in pursuit of that winning goal?
I think that going back to maybe our careers, being on the pitch playing against 10 men, right? It's a gift and a curse because you're expected to win. You feel like, OK, it's our day now. We were going up against 10 men. But in a way, it can be more difficult because you either are calm and patient, which is what Arsenal were today, but then there's not that intensity to speed things up. And you talk about 8 shots, you would expect there to be more shots. But there are far less shots up from outside the box nowadays than there were when we were playing. So maybe people would have been taking longer range shots. Whereas now it's more of a methodical approach in that this is our way of playing. We're going to play it wide, we're going to have overlaps, we're going to make, 1-2s, this, that and the third, and try and break you down in the way we would break down the mannequins in training, effectively. So, yes, you could argue that Arsenal should have maybe thrown a little bit more at them and gone a bit more gung-ho, but as the manager said in the press conference, it's that in transition, Chelsea were still dangerous, and Robert Sanchez was really good on those crosses, coming to collect them and throwing them out. But I would have anticipated Arsenal to create more chances within that in open play, for sure.
But 13 games in, and after a really difficult week for Arsenal as well, they find themselves 5 points clear. Had they found the winning goal, would have been 7. And I'm guessing they would have taken that, Theo, wouldn't they, at the start?
Absolutely. And as well, and when you look at the Liverpool where they are in the league, and they were probably favourites to win it at the start. Yes, of course. I think they would have looked at this table right now and absolutely taken that, of course. But look, you need to be careful, Manchester City. You're not quite sure. They're not consistent enough in this moment in time. However, yes, I think the goal tally is exceptional. I think they're playing a level with a lot of players that haven't been available at times. So look, I think in this moment in time, Arsenal are sitting really well.
For context, this stage last season, Arsenal actually had 25 points and found themselves in second place, and Liverpool led the way with 34. So there was an opportunity, arguably, for Arsenal to have really put a serious distance between themselves and the rest and take advantage of some of the frailties that we've seen elsewhere. Is that an argument?
Today was a day for them to go ahead and continue in how they've been performing, which has been dominant. And going up against 10 men, I do believe going home now, they are gutted about it. I would be. We as professionals and probably on the coaching side of things, you could argue we take a point. When you go after the statistical analysis and you go, OK, cool, this number would get us the league, so this is a great point today. But that doesn't negate the fact that I'm still going home thinking, we've played against 10 men, we've played against Chelsea, a direct rival. The opportunity is here to create a bit more distance. They've not taken that. Chelsea are going home, laughing, very, very happy, with big smiles on their faces, knowing they've got away with one today.
They are there, he said as well. Red card, no doubt about that, from Moises Caicedo. And is the danger, though, Daniel? Yes, they are there, they're knocking on the door, but the red cards are holding them back. 4 already this season. As you can see, they've only won 1 of those 4.
They've got to figure that out. They've got to figure that out. I don't know what how they do that, what they do in the training ground, what rules they put in place. I don't know. They got to do something because there's too many red cards, man. But they're harming themselves. That's the issue. If they had 11 men today, they were the better side, and we could be talking about a very different result. But they're causing themselves issues. You know, it's like just try and stay locked in for 90 minutes and not get a red card. And I think at that point, they're clearly a consistently good football team, but they're shooting themselves in the foot time and time again.
All right, let's wrap this up, Theo, with some conclusions. Arsenal 5 points clear. Should they fear the challenge of Chelsea?
I think so. I really do. But just on that point there, Arsenal's problem last year, they drew too many games. Like with Chelsea, there's too many red cards, which it's going to play catch-up, aren't you? Yes, I think right now Arsenal are very comfortable. They're very happy, but there's still gears to come. I do feel there's still more to come from Arsenal. There's been elements of this season where they've been a bit less patient in these games, yes, in the big games. I just feel they just need to pick up the intensity from start to finish, and a lot of teams can't cope with them. And that's why I'll just ask them, just to ask questions of each other during these big games, to maybe go away from what Mikel's saying to them at times. I think that's a big change for me.
Very quickly, can Chelsea challenge?
Yes.
There we go. Daniel Sturridge has said it. Chelsea are title challengers.